Welcome to the Power Forward Pod, hosted by the Power Forward Group Financial Advisory Team, where we believe two is better than one, dialogues are better than monologues, thoughts were meant to be challenged, sound boxes are the enemy, and change is the only constant. And today, in line with all of that, sound boxes, two is better than one, and kind of open up the dialogues being better than monologues. I'm joined by our favorite guest who's been here with us before, Michael Kane.
Good to see you. It's always good to be here.
It's amazing to be here. We are moving offices soon, so
we are.
And
we can't wait to set up a new podcast room, right?
That's right. We got
even better.
So you're probably closing out this space, most likely.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, because we're moving hopefully later this week.
Great. So,
yeah.
One of my earliest relationships in the advisory space, and we'll close out this chapter as we move to a new location.
On to the next.
Exactly.
That's right.
Michael has been kind enough 2 years ago to invite me to the New York Times DealBook Summit, which was the highlight of my year 2 years ago. And of course, we went again this year, and it was the highlight of my year again this year. And I said, hey, we got to bring this back to the people. We got to talk about our takeaways, some of the things we learned, and just really kind of dive into the event a little bit. So, Mike, since you're the one who invited me, you want to describe kind of for the audience, for all of us, what the New York Times DealBook Summit really is?
Yeah, so the New York Times puts on I guess you'd call it a conference, really, right? And they bring in just unbelievable speakers. And the host of it, Andrew Ross Sorkin, who's also one of the hosts of CNBC and has written just unbelievable books and has written obviously some TV shows. But he's asked all the time, and he starts it out with, how do I pick some of the people that I interview? And it really is the people that have made the news over the past year, and people that we certainly are all very familiar with, or that you see or read about, or any of those. And it's just a phenomenal event. It's probably 200-300 people in attendance, would you say? Unbelievable location, overlooking Central Park, right in Columbus Circle. And same with you. It's really one of the highlights of my year is seeing these speakers and understanding what they're thinking about, having him interview them, trying to relate it back to our life and our business and what we can take out of that. And it's just a great event. Yeah.
What I find so empowering is just the intimacy of the room, right? You look around the room, first of all, and you see names and faces of really movers and shakers, I think, from all spaces. You see people from finance in the room. You see people from the athletic space, you see people from the entertainment space, and they're all just sitting there, right? You could be sitting next to anybody. We'll talk about some of the people we sat next to and some people we've been around year over year, but I feel like the guy snuck in the back door.
It's crazy to see some of these people, and that they're all just human beings, just like you and I, and that they're there to learn and to listen to these people and to question. And also the other piece is, because it is such a small group, the relationships that we've all formed with these people from seeing them year over year. And, we don't see them throughout the year, but getting to see them every year is always great.
Yeah. So I think before we kind of going through some of the speakers and some of our takeaways, just the room itself, right? So you're in this intimate environment. And today we eat all our media via our phone or via the TV, right? That's where you kind of, TikTok for some, but that's kind of quick media. And now we have long form interviews throughout the day. It starts at what time in the morning?
Probably 8:30, 9 a.m. and goes till 6:30. Right.
Which is, we'll talk about the interviewer, Andrew Ross Sorkin, because that's an amazing job just to be able to just have that stamina and to shift gears like that. But to me, the amazing thing is really remembering sometimes it is really important. There's a feel in the room, and there's something you get from seeing somebody live that doesn't come across, for sure in a soundbite on TV, but even when you watch a full interview on TV, right? If you watch Face the Nation on Sunday or one of these long-form interviews on TV, you don't get the same feel as you get in the room. There's a couple of times, which we'll share, that you really, really experienced some of the feel of the individual.
We have certainly seen a lot of these things from, Elon Musk last year. I mean, I'm sure people have seen the clips of him blowing up on Bob Iger, or, Sam Bankman-Fried the year before, and watching that, live and seeing what was going on and seeing his reaction on different things to, I'm sure we'll touch on this, Bill Clinton this year, seeing the emotion that I think you could only experience in person there.
Yeah, so that to me was amazing. And the second level is really just sitting here today and, running this podcast, the interview skills of Andrew Sorkin are amazing, right? So he runs through, we'll go through some of we won't go through every speaker, but he runs through a ton of speakers in a ton of different industries, right? From media to finance to politics. And he's able to switch gears, have the stamina to run through all these interviews, and ask questions that haven't been asked before, right? Everybody in the room is knowledgeable, right? Jerome Powell spoke, right? Jerome Powell, if you're in finance, you're listening to all the time. He's got to ask something else. He's got to get the guy off his game a little bit, and he does. He's effective at that consistently, which I think is such an amazing skill set. So I certainly learned from him. Guy looks younger every year.
He does. And to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, the amount of research that he must do to simplify it down so that every single person can understand it and relate to it. I mean, you can relate to Jerome Powell sitting there. He's playing guitar or something over in France, when he got out of college. Like all of those little things that he makes look so easy that I know he spends so much time working on.
Yeah. And we really, I've only gone 2 years, Mike's gone 3, but you see thematically, everybody, it's the New York Times, so you have a lot of power behind you. They do bring in speakers who are pertinent at the time, but you also see trends, right? So 2 years ago, you saw there was a fair amount of media and sports, I'd say, as well as politics.
Very much, yeah. And that was even probably 3 years ago as well. It was very much driven TV, entertainment, sports, what was going on out there. I mean, there were some of the strikes going on and all those different things as well.
Yeah, and this year was definitely more finance and tech related. Politics definitely came into play, but you didn't have current politicians, right, fronting.
Yeah.
You didn't have media. There was media, but a different type of media,
very
not traditional
different.
Media. Yep. And I think that's apropos of kind of where our investments are going, where the market's going, and where just human interest is going.
That's exactly. I mean, this year was much more focused on AI and some of the tech stacks that are coming down. And I think 3 years ago it was Reed Hastings from Netflix was talking. Last year, I mean, they had obviously the Disney CEO who we mentioned earlier, Warner CEO, and
David Zaslow. Yeah.
Yep. Some TV producers as well and writers, and so very different this year.
Okay, so to jump into some of the great speakers we saw and kind of some of the insights that I gleaned from it, and you gleaned from it. Starting off with Reuven being Reuven. Mike saved me a seat. It's a small room, but I had some travel delays in a late morning. It's an early morning to get there. I missed the speaker I wanted to see the most to start off the day. I missed
the
Sam
best
Altman.
speaker of the day. No, yeah. Well, I'll just mess it.
Right,
a great speaker.
So I missed Sam Altman. And for those of you who know and don't know, right, Sam Altman is who?
Founder of OpenAI.
Right, which is going through they're kind of on the cutting edge and the lead for all news on kind of where AI and ChatGPT is going. The big current conversations around taking what was a nonprofit and potentially going public, and some of the friction there. But I'd love to hear your takeaways, and I'm going to let you lead this a little bit because I really missed it.
Well, first off, I mean, you look at him and you're he's a person just like you and I, number one, right? And I even think some of the themes, right, around, he's wearing jeans and a sweater. And, most of the people now are not in ties. I think, Fed Chairman Powell was the only person in a tie this year. And obviously
I think Bill Clinton was wearing a tie.
Oh, Bill Clinton was, you're right. Yep, it was two of them. So people related to government, interestingly enough, right, on those pieces. But Sam Altman, Sam Altman did just a fantastic job, I think, of really describing what OpenAI's path has been. And I remember them talking about right before ChatGPT came out, no one had really talked about OpenAI, right? We'd heard this terminology AI, no one really knew what any of that meant.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden ChatGPT drops, and all of us are like, that was a dinner conversation. And he was asked, did y'all know that was going to be like the moment that this thing took off and was going to become, conversation? And his response was like, we knew we had something good, but you never know when that moment is going to happen, but you just got to keep moving forward. And we launched it and we thought we had this. And then all of a sudden, whoa, oh my gosh, like how many people are using this and what it looks like in all the different iterations. And so that was really interesting to me. And then, certainly, and you touched on it, on the nonprofit, switching to the for-profit. And And I think you see this theme in a lot of individuals where I don't think he's doing it for the money at all. Like he was asked around, he doesn't have any equity in this thing right now. And he was asked, do you regret that? And his response, I remember him looking back at Andrew and he said, I think you think about that way more than I do.
That's interesting because that was thematic throughout the day, the money thing.
It was. It just is not that. That's not their main driver on a lot of these things. I mean, I think certainly a lot of them love it, but for the most of them, that is not their main driver. And I felt like you could certainly see that through him. And then, the other thing I really took from him was truly the optimism that's going to come from some of this technology that is out there and us being able to utilize this stuff. It'll be really interesting to see what they release next.
Yeah.
And, he didn't give any color on that or any indication on what that's going to be necessarily, but I can assure you they're going to continue to, I think, thrive and create new opportunities for all of us.
So thematically, what I saw a lot throughout the day, kind of what you touched on a moment ago, was a lot of times, and I think the interviewer, right, he was great at kind of sussing this out. This is why we see these themes, and maybe he's pre-thought this. I'm not even sure. Maybe he's that good, right? One was optimism, right?
Yeah.
An amazing sense of optimism throughout the speakers and
throughout
a myriad of ways. The second I saw was this idea that was asked directly at some points, but it came across throughout. You just touched on it with money, is the way we, the public, perceive some of these people who are thought leaders and up there on pedestals, and the way they're humans, the way they perceive themselves and kind of what drives them. The motivators are kind of very different than what you kind of assume they are. And when I say that, I think the assumption is always money and fame. And I don't think that's really what people in these areas are really striving for and why they built it. And I think that came across.
I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Throughout everyone. That was a very common theme.
Yeah. So I found that and the exposure and the ability to kind of get that out and suss that out was really amazing. So kind of to jump forward, even though we're not to go sequentially, because I think it fits together, right? Elon Musk was kind of a little bit of an overarching topic throughout the day.
Yeah.
He wasn't there this year. We did see him last year.
We saw him last year.
Which was, a wild experience. I didn't think that could be topped. Being in the room with Elon Musk had just a physical feel to it that was different. I did think Jeff Bezos actually might have topped it this year, who closed out the day.
Yeah.
But Elon Musk kind of, because of his relationship with Trump and because of his leadership in the tech community, kind of was overarching. I know he's got a lawsuit now with Sam Altman. Kind of did that come through at all?
They definitely touched on it. They asked about the relationship there, and Elon had mentioned that last year on how it had soured. And, the other thing that I took from, Sam Altman and others, they aren't talking bad about each other, really. It's very much like, we aren't partners anymore, or we have limited, contact anymore, but I wish them well. And it really isn't like this race of being, scared that someone's going to pass you. It's more like just this, I want to be the best. I want to create the next best thing. And I want to continue to push myself every single day. And that is, comes through so much on a lot of these speakers.
Yeah. So the best really, I think, was saved for last, and it was saved for last the year before. I thought Sam Altman was going to be saved for last, but he went first to lead off the day. Last was Jeff Bezos, right?
Yeah.
And last year was Elon Musk. And, let's talk about presence for a minute. Elon Musk came in the room. There was Kamala Harris spoke the year before. Kevin McCarthy. There was politicians who came with their own security. Elon Musk walks in the room. He's got security that Secret Service. They come in with looking good in suits. You can't see that they're packing. Elon Musk comes in with more security, and you could tell they're packing. Mm-hmm. And he also comes in an hour late and makes everybody wait.
He did. Drove me nuts.
Drove you nuts, right? And Bob Iger's in the room, right? Yeah. Those people, it probably really drove nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But they waited.
But they waited. They did wait. Right? They did wait. We all sat there. Not a mistake, probably.
Yeah. But he had a presence. He walked in the room, and to me, and I don't mean this in a, the word is used as like a negative connotation always, but he walks in the room, and I almost felt at the beginning, you're in the room physically you feel like you're in the room with somebody who's different. Mm-hmm. It was the first time I'd felt that all day to that degree. To me, the word that popped in my head was sociopath. Not necessarily bad, right? So, but like really like this person is just there's a different aura.
Different level.
Feel the aura right around him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily positive, right? There was a chip on the shoulder. He came out very aggressively. He cursed out.
Yep.
I think it's Bob Iger
He
cursed
did.
out.
He did.
I was sitting next to the head of the ADL, right next to him. He went directly at him for some of the comments on free speech that have been going on with X. And he was really just, firing bullets. And then he got deep. At first I was like, wow, this is what he came to do. And then he got deep. Jeff Bezos walked on the stage this year, and it was also a presence, but it was such a different presence, and it was the presence of the day.
Very different. I mean, I thought he's probably been the best speaker I've ever seen. Just again, like he put everything so simply, you know, and he was able to describe going to space to me, who knows nothing about that, and make me feel like I understood what he was talking about. Yep. And like, there were just so many one-liners that he also has, and you just go.
But they weren't one-liners. They were one-liners, but they weren't one-liners.
I mean, you actually think about some of the things he said. I mean, like, one of them was he was talking about his wealth, and he said, "I'm tired of people saying how much money I have. I want us to talk about how much money I've created for the world, and I'd love to have that list." Is what he shared, and. Like you think about that, and then you think about, he talked about so many people overvalue risk and undervalue return. And he's like, I'm the opposite. Like, I'm not worried about failing on these things. And, and I was thinking about, this just the other day. I mean, he tells a story of them going to space, and he brought his brother. And you think about, that's got to be scary. And, him talking about that morning with his family.
So he said something very beautiful there, right? He said, talk about risk. He said one of the most beautiful moments of his life, and astronauts speak about it all the time, is this moment where you kind of see the curvature of the Earth, where you get that spot. And he spoke about the guys on Apollo 13, all these astronauts speaking about it. He said he thought that was going to be the moment, and it was a special moment. This is, the first citizen space travelers. Yeah. You're going to see this space. But he said what shocked him and what surprised him a little bit more is his family, your dad, your husband, your spouse, your child is going to space. They came to, say him goodbye, and it made him realize how much people loved him. Yeah. Right. And that really, like, the grounding on Earth before he left Earth, that was a moment, and he didn't expect it to happen. Yeah. Really hit home for him.
I remember him also talking about when you get, actually into space and looking back, and somebody had described to him, like, you think heaven is afterlife or whatever. And once you look at actually the world that we live in, you realize that you're living in heaven every single day. Yep. And just the beautiful world that we actually live in and that we get to live in every single day is, it was powerful, him talking about that. Yep. And again, just the conviction that he has that they had done this right, that it was going to work, that he was going to go to space, that he was going to come back down, and that he was going to be able to, hug his kids again. Like, it's powerful.
Yeah. And, it's interesting to me. I found it interesting, and I think we heard a little bit about this, is two of the most wealthiest, successful people in today's day and age are doing the same thing to some degree, right? Yeah. You have Elon Musk working on SpaceX. You have Jeff Bezos working on Blue Origin.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
I was in Cape Canaveral with my kids this year, and you go to the head of NASA, and you see more of Jeff Bezos' stuff than you see of NASA's building there. It's really there are government connections there that are really interesting. But I was super, I wanted to hear what's Jeff Bezos' plan, why are they doing this, right? And Elon Musk, what we heard from Elon Musk last year was a little bit about kind of what I grew up with a little bit is, I grew up, there's going to be flying cars and we're going to be living on Mars, right? Yeah. Those are the two things, neither of which happened yet. My kids watch Back to the Future, and I think number 2 is like 2015, they're flying cars. We're not close yet. But the other thing was living on Mars, and that was a little bit of Elon Musk. Like, we got to get to Mars because his view is planet Earth is going to get hit by an asteroid, something's going to happen, global warming, all these risk factors that we need an escape hatch, right? And then just talk about kind of the positivity. Jeff Bezos' version. Do you remember Jeff Bezos' version of why he wants to kind of create?
Tell me. Yeah, I don't.
It was that Earth is one of one.
That's right.
We have this wonderful planet. Everything's working here. Maybe we could do things better. Maybe we need to take care of it better. But it's not about leaving Earth. It was about how do we get all the garbage and trash off of Earth.
That's right.
It's almost like a recycling service, right? How do we keep Earth one of one? How do we maintain what we have? It's not about finding something better. It's about maintaining what we have. And it's like opposite sides of the same coin, but for completely different reasons. And I'm not smart enough to understand which way it's going, but I find it interesting that these two guys, this is their level 2 after they've already made all this money. This is where they're going.
Absolutely. I mean, he was dynamite, just dynamite in an unbelievable way to close the day.
Yeah.
On just such a positive note as well around like what the world looks like. I mean, we can all get stuck in, oh my gosh, everything is, going down or not going our way or anything, and just the positivity that he has each and every day.
So that competition, right? They're in competition, so to speak, right? And Andrew Ross Sorkin asked really smartly, right? Does it concern you that Elon Musk has all these connections now with President Trump? And he not only did he speak to that, and he said it did not. I thought what was wonderful is he said throughout his career, he said he learned to take people at their word. It's a much easier way of living, and it works out most of the time. It reminded me of you a little bit.
Thanks.
Being from Virginia, not from New York.
Thank you.
Right? In New York, we look at it a little cynically, right? But like it's that Virginia outlook.
He said, I'm not a cynic. And he said, sure, it's burned me a couple times, but I don't live my life as a cynic. And again, just a great line to live by on some things in my mind.
It's easier, right? Just take people at their word. And
it is, yeah.
For him,
I think he's done pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
He also did talk about having to Venmo his kids some money for dinner or something like that.
Yeah,
so
he claimed to kind of do it from stage.
Yeah, who knows if that's true or not. But yeah, we'll take him at his word there.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I love that.
I took him at his word there, yeah.
I love that. I loved his view of risk. I loved his view of America, just kind of what we're doing for venture capital and the risk we're willing to take and why we're growing. There's a lot of talk throughout the day in the economic cycle about the deficit. And we had Jerome Powell speak about it. We had, hedge fund guys speak about it, but he put it so cleanly to talk about things so cleanly, right? He said, we just got to grow faster.
That's essentially what he said. Like, don't worry about anything else. Let's grow faster.
Right.
And we'll be okay.
It's kind of the Amazon model. Like, we didn't make money for the first 10 years, but we're growing. We're just gonna keep growing.
And it's kind of like bet on yourselves, bet on the U.S., right? Like, let's keep going and we can do this.
Right. And these are the forefront, right? That's the forefront of that. So I really loved kind of that. And the last thing I'll say about him was this simplicity. Before he spoke earlier in the day, Sundar, the president of Google, spoke.
Yep.
And a lot of the conversation is based on AI. And he spoke wonderfully. And this is not to denigrate anything he said, but what I found throughout the conversation on AI, not just him, but throughout the day when that came up, is in order to explain some of the concepts that these people are seeing in the future, they had to kind of dumb it down to current examples. So for Sundar, it was Waymo.
Yeah.
Right. Waymo is Google's self-driving service. It's out in San Francisco and a couple of cities. It's coming. He kept using Waymo as an example of like where AI is going. And it wasn't to build up Waymo necessarily. That's a concrete example for us to imagine. You get in a car and it's going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And it was great. I thought Jeff Bezos did it so simply and so distinctly. Like it was just, all right, this makes sense, right? Is AI threatening? No. AI is going to be a great tool. It's going to be a tool you can use.
That's right. Embrace it.
Embrace it. Yeah.
Embrace the have it be for good, but embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember his comment was, I think I'm a pretty good writer. Am I the best writer? No. But that's okay because I can use these tools to make certain skill sets better. It's about maybe using these as tools to build out. And I think that resonated with me a lot in terms of just where we're going on that front. To come to the meat a little bit in the middle. I've heard Bill Clinton speak a couple times. I've heard him live a couple times. I remember him fondly. He was a great communicator as president. He's very easy on the ears, very easy to listen to. And I thought his interview was super interesting, especially being there in person. He at the end of his interview, you saw kind of the father figure of president with Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Yeah, he could have talked for hours. Number one, I could have listened for hours as well. I mean, tell about the emotional aspect, and I think that's again where it was you had to be there when he was talking about his time as president.
Yeah, so throughout the conversation, kind of meandered a little bit. There were a lot of topics Bill Clinton could speak about. I think a little bit of the impetus is he wrote a book and kind of just talking about kind of his time in presidency, but Andrew Ross Sorkin did good about kind of growing the scope of that conversation. What really struck me is he got emotional at one point, like really emotional. He got emotional when he was asked about what's going on in Israel now with Hamas. And I think the question to some degree was, how does he respond kind of to college protesters and people on campus protesting pro-Gaza? How does he respond to that wing of the Democratic Party? And he said, I have the conversations, but I think a lot of them forget where we were when I was president. And this is the one thing, and he said, this is the thing I regret about my presidency. And he started to tear. And he said Yitzhak Rabin was the closest man he had a relationship with in his life. It was like a brother to him. If there was a man he loved, that was the man he loved. And he said, we were, this close. I had him and Arafat at the table. We had given, everything that was needed to get that agreement was there. There were fringe of 2-3% on the fringes. But he said, Chairman Arafat walked away. Mm-hmm. And then he followed that with, that was nail in the coffin 1, and nail in the coffin 2, where he really grew emotional is, and then Rabin was killed by a right-wing Israeli. He said, we were so close, mm-hmm. And now we're so far. But that point, matters today in terms of just the memory. This guy's a memory from where he was, and I think we forget kind of the history of events. And it's important for leaders who try to create that history to make sure we remember the history. But even more importantly, like, you seeing a president who really said, I could have made a difference. Yeah. I didn't close the deal.
30 years later, right? Yep. And the emotion that is still there. And I also took like that, these are big decisions, questions, moments that they have as president, and just the, pain that he quite frankly still has on this from 30 years ago.
Yeah. So I thought he was really inspiring. I also thought it was interesting. I think I haven't read his book, but it sounded like some of the theme was morality, and we know that was kind of a big demarcation in American politics that came up during his impeachment. I found he struggled to answer the questions.
He did,
even though he just wrote a book on it. Found like he had a lot of trouble defining like morality today and kind of what that meant. So I guess some things don't change also.
Yeah, politicians don't answer the questions, right? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And at the end, what was great is almost like a grandpa, and he isn't looking great. He's looking like he's aging a little bit. He's looking like he might have some health things going on. But he stood up and he really he looked at the audience and he paid tribute to Andrew Ross Sorkin, right? Yeah. He put his arm around him and he basically just told us all a vignette about like how he remembers this guy growing up and and it was just as president you could do whatever you want. He broke the wall, right? He broke the third wall. And B, he embarrassed the shit out of the interviewer, which I thought was very cool.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. How about Serena? Wasn't she great?
Yeah. So tell us, what'd you love? Michael loves last year you loved Live Golf. Michael loves the sports side of things.
That's right. I mean, I loved her in that, I mean, the optimism. She goes into every point thinking that she's going to win. And she was asked, like, what I loved about it is, if you watch tennis at all, if somebody's ever down, they get to an end of a set and it's kind of like, okay, do you just rest for them? Do you give away the last couple points to get into the next set and kind of reset? And she was like, absolutely not. Like, there's never been a point that I've given away. And having that mindset again, it's impressive of just every single point. And then I loved her talking about her mom. I mean, we've all heard about her dad, and obviously, a movie was done about her, her family, but her mom, she was talking about, and just how the mom, I think she said, was the spine of the family and, kept them all moving forward and all those different things. It was just, again, you're sitting beside somebody who's, obviously one of the greatest of all time. Yeah. And you look at them and you go, God, they're another human being, right? Yeah. And, they can play tennis a lot better than me or, any of those different things, but they're still just a human being and trying to get better every single day. And that's what we're all trying to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting. There were questions about her and her twin, right? Her sister, Venus, right?
Yeah.
And I think about this with my kids all the time. You probably do also, nature versus nurture. Are your kids alike?
No.
All right. Are you and Mara, your wife, are you guys the same? Like, have you changed that much over the years?
It's interesting, right? And how, her and her sister are so different and both had unbelievably successful careers.
Right, top 2, maybe top, Venus maybe top 5, but top tennis players of all time.
Absolutely.
Yet she said, for herself, she couldn't handle losing, which you hear a lot of they hate losing more than winning.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little thematic. She didn't say it directly, but I kind of got that sense from Serena.
And she also said it was weird when you lose to your sister and then you're roommates with the person, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, you got to figure it out right then, right? You live in a small place or even a big place. You got to figure it out.
Yep. But she also said Venus didn't have that. Venus was different, right? Venus didn't. But the point she clearly made was they both worked, right? You can kind of work within your personality is your personality. You can still achieve greatness in whichever way you want to go, even though you have two sisters, right? Genetically similarities, but personality is completely different. And they're both champions in their own day. I thought that was great. Yeah. Alex Cooper. So first of all, who's Alex Cooper?
I think her name is Call Me Daddy podcast, or it's the Daddy Group or something, whatever it is. Brilliant is what I took from that one.
Yes.
Ruben leaned over to me a couple minutes in and said, she's interviewing him. And I mean, she came in and she knew, like, you again look at that and you go, good for you on knowing your audience, diving in, understanding what they're looking for. And she, certainly very interesting.
So yeah, super interesting. And we're doing a podcast, like she's got a killer podcast apparently. But new media versus old media, right? 2 years ago, we heard David Zaslav speak and they're having all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
And he sounded optimistic 2 years ago and hasn't seemed to have gotten better. They had just had all these issues where CNN was getting destroyed. Actually, another being in the audience, the Chris Licht, I think his name was.
I think it is. Yeah. Was sitting right behind us, right?
And the guy speaking, like there's, the head of CNN who just got laid off by
got fired.
got fired.
And he was like, oh, is he in the audience? Hey, how are you? You're a nice person. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. And, obviously, he had to show some optimism of where he's going to take the future, but they're still struggling. And Alex Cooper having a podcast, and we think about kind of just in the last election cycle, and she was involved in this. This is the cutting edge of where media is going today, and there were some questions on that front. Her involvement was she interviewed Kamala Harris, working on that one. But there were a lot of questions about why she interviewed him and not Trump. And what's his name? Who's the podcast? Joe
Rogan. Yep.
Right.
Interviewed Trump and got a ton of views and all the different things. Yeah.
So what I thought was great and what I thought was interesting about her comments there when she was asked, she says, I know what my audience wants, right? I don't have to be fair and balanced, right? Fox News, CNN, they claim to be fair and balanced. We all have our own views, but they do claim to be fair and balanced. She doesn't have to claim to be fair and balanced. She's curating to her audience. My audience wants to hear about this one and not that candidate. That's who I'm bringing on. And will I support it? I'm going to be open with it, right? I'm going to support who I want. And towards the end, Andrew, for sure, she was definitely behind the scenes kind of running that interview, which told you, all right, she's clearly good.
Smart. She's done her research.
Right. Yeah. But he asked for advice. Do you remember that?
I do. I don't remember what she said. Do you remember what she said?
I took notes. I'm cheating here a little bit.
But,
my handwriting is awful. But they did give out this book 2 years ago. Maybe New York Times I brought it back this year, but they didn't give out a free one this year. But I have my notes from both years, which I love. But her advice, his question was kind of steeped in the idea of, that David Zaslav effect of old media is having issues, right? Viewership is down in terms of really news media. And more than that, why is viewership down? And she said, because your audience don't trust you.
That's right. She did. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're just selling something. Not you, Andrew Sorkin, but you guys are selling something. I'm not. I'm representing something. I think it was a little different. You're selling, I'm representing, right? I'm curating for my audience. What I'm doing is a little bit more organic. And I think we're seeing that a lot in just the cultural, and when we talk about AI and sound boxes a little bit, right? People are shifting to the voices they want to hear, and these voices are having real impacts. The spectrum's changing. So I thought that was really, really...
she was impressive. Yeah. Really impressive.
Yeah. Prince Harry spoke, personally. To me, that wasn't so interesting. I didn't stay in for the whole time. That was when I did some of my work calls. But I know he touched on kind of social media and things like that with his kids.
He did. I'm with you. That was it's a good interview. Wasn't the most interesting interview from my perspective. I mean, there were a lot of others. And then the other thing that you get from these things, and I think about, like, they also do this, it's called a groundbreaker lunch. And you just get to, I was at a table, which is unbelievable people. And one of the people that I was at a table with is a partner at a incredibly large executive search recruiting firm, and they're searching for one of the top CEOs right now. They're doing a search for him. And I asked, what do y'all look for? And I remember him saying, he said, we no longer look for ability anymore. We look for agility. You have to have the ability, obviously, but you got to be agile in this world. And that was one of the things I'm also taking from all these people is just the agility that they have every single day with whatever problem comes up to handle it, but not to get not to chase the shiny object, right? They're so committed to what they are doing, but still being agile enough, whatever it is pops up, it might take them off track for a second to get back on track. And just really cool people that you get to meet and conversations that you get to have. And again, just an all around unbelievable day. Yeah.
The Groundbreaker lunch is really cool. You get to choose, a topic that you're interested in. You sit at a table and there's somebody there curating the conversation. It's not just somebody, it's somebody interesting. Last year, Mike and I sat at the same table. We sat with the CEO of Lyft. He was super interesting. There's a lot going on that front right now. But what I thought was really cool is that I watched you walk out the room. First of all, you meet somebody, you have a couple of comments, they remember you, right? We had a couple of comments. He was sitting next to us in our row. We had a conversation with him. He clearly, resonated who we are. We had a little bit, but you did a great job. And I touched on this. You did a great job of really rekindling that relationship. So from a sales skill and kind of trade skill, I saw you do something really cool there. Do you want to share with the audience?
Sure. I didn't even realize I did this until after Ruben. We were talking and we've gotten to meet him the last couple of years and really nice person. But he was talking and I said, hey, what are you trying to do this year? What's one of your goals? And he was talking about customer experience. And so I mentioned an article I have read actually in the New York Times about Marriott, how they have different levels of customer service, whether it's a St. Regis, to the Courtyard by Marriott, to regular Marriott, and so on in between. And so I did send him the article. I emailed him a couple of days later, the article, because I had said, hey, I'll follow up with you with this article. He never emailed me back, but
next year.
But next year, I'm going to say, hey, you never emailed me back. Who knows? Maybe I didn't have the right email, but I mean, that's the thing, is finding connections and things, right? And trying to provide value.
Yeah. I mean, Michael was being real in that scenario. He wasn't just pitching. Michael loves, and it's an interesting thing that you're passionate about, but you love consumer treatment in the hospitality industry. You talk about travel a lot, like the different Four Seasons, the way people get treated. Delta, not that you're so bougie, but you kind of like to watch it and see that consumer experience.
I think it's fascinating to see the deliberacy that some of these organizations have and how they do things, right? I mean, you mentioned the Four Seasons. I mean, that's just an unbelievable client experience that you have, and some of the other places as well, the client experiences that you can have and things, or vice versa, the terrible experience that you can have, and how that makes you feel about going back to a place. It's really interesting to watch how they do things. Yeah. So first of all, my experience of the day on a personal level, and I'm not a big celebrity hunter, or that's not my personality. And I don't love to bother, all right, let's hear it. People, I don't love to bother them to take pictures, but I did take a picture of somebody. Who? I bumped into, at the DealBook Summit during lunch. One of the tables was run by my man crush, Liev Schreiber. Ray Donovan, right? Does all the, has the voice for all the HBO specials. He ran yours? He did not run mine, but I saw him, and I had to go over, and I also had to take a picture because, I don't know. Right, is it a good picture? No, it's awful. My arms aren't long enough for selfies personally, because I'm a short guy, which, not that I don't need to lose weight, but it kind of tightens up to the face level. So looks like I have some extra weight on the chin, more than I really have. But no, AI will take care of that. He's got jowls also, it's part of his look, so we jowl together. Yeah. But I got his email. I have a client who's working on a documentary. I got to share that with him, which is kind of really cool, sizzle for that, which is, again, you can have that experience. I sat at a table. My breakout was, I chose Jason Greenblatt, the head of the ADL. I sat next to him last year. That's right. He's been there every year. Yeah. He was just, it was so interesting to hear what's going on college campuses. He has a child who's at Columbia, and obviously a little bit of a target on their back, on his child's back. But just to hear kind of the data and kind of what he's dealing with, and also the cool part in terms of, I sat next to him when Elon Musk called him out, and he remembered, I gave him a little bit moral support at the moment. It's just cool to see the same people year in, year out. We also saw Jerome Powell. I'll save that. We don't have to dive into that because I'll tease that our PFG client note this year
was about some of his thoughts.
It was a great note that you wrote. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Great note.
Make sure you're on our mailing list and check out my LinkedIn. I think we posted it there. But we had some of that, and there were some other speakers throughout. But those themes were really empowering. I think just the optimism of the day.
That's what I took from it. Of the best is in front of us, you know, and I'm telling you, I can't wait for next year's DealBook Summit. Can't wait to see who they interview next year and all the different things. But what a phenomenal day.
Yeah, loved it. So thank you guys all for joining us. Michael, thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
I had you today. You had me at the DealBook Summit. We'll keep doing this. We'll keep bringing it back.
I can't wait.
Love it.
See you guys soon.